Hi, Iggy. Well, there you go. You caught me chatting. This is the problem when I don't have the handheld microphones. I've got them on my ear today like a rock star. We're all rock stars here today. That is a bit insane out there in the exhibition hall. Absolutely crazy. Nice to see you out there running around though. Feel free to go out and come in as the day progresses. Those of you at home don't have that luxury, but you can always watch back the presentations as well. All right, we have got another jam-packed session for you. We're going to start with one of the rock stars. I've got a Hot Chili coming up on stage. Christian Easterday is the CEO. He's also the Managing Director. Would you please make him very welcome?
Well, thank you very much for attending, and it looks to be quite an exciting conference this year. Moving into our third year of depressed market conditions, it's always good to look at how the companies are performing and get a good health check. So I'm very, very pleased to be able to present again, which is becoming an annual, almost an annual event for us, starting off the year, and providing a good update for the Australian sector on the development of what is now one of the leading copper developers in the world. So I'll just start really quickly on what we've been able to do over the last 6 months. It's been quite transformative in terms of our progress of Costa Fuego, top 6 undeveloped copper resource in the world, located in the Americas in Chile on the coastal range. And for the first time, we've been able to put economics around the scale of this project, and the scale is really significant. We put a PEA out mid last year that really demonstrated what we've been building and looking to continue to grow. At the current level of scale, we've confirmed that Costa Fuego is now a 100,000 tonne per annum copper development project, which is quite significant for the Australian market. Over the past year, we've seen a real transformation in the dynamics of Australia's exposure to the copper sector, and we're going to talk about why that's important shortly, particularly given the backdrop of particular commodities and the laws of supply and demand in this business that mean persistence and positioning is really key. We position Costa Fuego as a circa 95,000 tonne per annum copper production hub with about 50,000 ounces of gold, delivering one of the lowest capital intensity, large-scale copper developers in the world, and most importantly, exposing Hot Chili to what inevitably is coming towards the end of this decade, and that's exposing our leverage in being able to control such a large-scale project. The low-risk aspects of Costa Fuego have baked themselves into the capital and operating cost numbers, and the company is currently embarking on its last growth phase before we deliver our pre-feasibility at the end of this year. Copper, as I've said, is going to be key moving towards the end of this decade. And while it will be a bumpy ride for some as supply response meets large demand in the critical metal space, we've seen lithium find gravity in its price over the past year, and the nickel guys also experiencing pain, and certainly Hot Chili is a company that has already gone through similar experiences back in 16 and 17 with the copper price. So it's something we well understand how to navigate a project through that cycle, and fortunately the positioning of Hot Chili is now in front of what increasingly looks like a complete inelastic response to a very serious increase in demand over the coming years from the electrification of the world. We also, during last year, secured a very important investor from North America, Cisco. That also meant that Hot Chili now for over 2 years has not issued any equity capital on behalf of our shareholders. So navigating markets by using optionality has been really key in what this project holds, and it allowed us to be able to finance at a roughly project valuation of around $1.38 billion US. Importantly, putting very small royalties that can be bought back. These are key financing avenues that we were able to expose ourselves through our North American listing and development of our relationships over there. So very happy to see Cisco come on board alongside Glencore as key shareholders in this large development. The capital structure has not changed for 2.5 years. We're still sitting there with a market capitalisation which does not belie the asset that we've been able to just fund against. What has really been key in this journey that is now 15 years, so if you're looking at the average time frame to develop a large-scale copper project from inception through to production being around 20 years, Hot Chili is moving a little bit ahead of average. Permitting has been key to differentiating this project. Out of all of the permits that we've taken into our possession over the past 10 years to effectively remove all hurdles to a development decision, water is looming as probably the largest asset. It was 10 years to secure. We're now confirming that we are studying a water concept study for the entire Huasco region. And when we talk about positioning, we talk about where Costa Fuego is located on the coastline, in the middle of infrastructure, next to port, all of the easements secured, surface rights secured, and most importantly, holding the only water license for that region of Chile. And that's important because it probably accounts for about 35% of the new project pipeline for the world in terms of copper production. And when Hot Chili is holding the only water asset, it looms as a significant enabler that we're now investigating. On the economics, capital intensity is certainly the strength of the project, not requiring a high Andean water pipeline, not requiring a desalination plant, has been key to why that capital number is not $2 billion US or more. And that has established us in a very enviable position. On cash costs, again, the low altitude nature of this project and low strip ratios on our open pit are sitting below a very, very healthy $1.33 per pound. But what scaling this project up does, if we are able to secure that over the coming years and take this towards a 150,000 tonne project, it will become the largest in the development space outside of the majors, and most importantly, push that cash cost down even further, which is key for a long life project. When we look at sensitivities, this is where we talk about a company's exposure to beta, their exposure to the underlying commodity price. Some people think that you only get exposure to that when you're in production and you're producing revenue. You get exposure to it as an explorer, you get exposure to it as a developer. This project valuation on NPV triples to around 3.3 billion US if we add 50% to the copper price, and the IRRs in this project double. So that is extreme leverage, around 100 million US added to the project value with every 10 cents per pound copper. And that's really what the value proposition underlying Hot Chili sits on. And if I was to pick out one key slide for what differentiated us, it's low altitude against all of the other large developers and the fact that we have a water license. Capital intensity, as I've shown, this is all of the copper developers in the world outside of a major, above 40,000 tonne per annum copper. So you have to squint your eyes to find Australian representatives on that map. Most of them are in North America. And at the moment, Costa Fuego is the only pure play developer sitting on the right-hand side of the curve. Again, all of these projects, when you normalise them at $3.85 per pound long-term consensus price, which was used for this study, not inflated consensus price views. When you look at that and you look at the copper space on the average grade of these deposits, not many of them are going to be built at these kind of copper price levels. When very few sit on the right-hand side with profitability indexes above 1, and that's NPV divided by startup capital as a real key investment metric, it means that we're probably looking at a pipeline that does not get built unless we have significantly higher copper prices, and this is very well understood in our sector. Where Costa Fuego sits at the moment, around 930 million tonnes. This will be upgraded very shortly by the company in a revision that is being prepared for our pre-feasibility to maximise our first reserve at the end of the year on this combined project, but certainly sitting very in line with the average grade of these large-scale developers. I won't speak about market valuations and how we're undervalued. Everyone in this business seems to be undervalued. But what we can talk about is where the alpha on this project will be coming from over the next year and a half. So we're in a very enviable position to be very well funded in a soft market. It means we're still maintaining capital discipline in how we expend over this year. And as we approach the pre-feasibility, looking to really be in a stronger position than most. And that's about buying time to put our other funding optionality arrangements in place that may not involve equity financing again, and to really chase further growth in the project. So we're out there with the diamond rig, hitting some very large scale targets which sit peripheral to our main two bulk tonnage deposits at Tornatora and also at Tornatora. So it's a very exciting phase for the company. Our exploration group have been waiting many years since Tornatora's initial discovery holes went in to be able to actually step outside of the box. And just over the last 3 months, we started a phase of first pass drilling also on some of our regional exploration portfolio, as well as beefing up further consolidation in the region. And that is really behind our strategy to push this in scale towards a 150,000 tonne per annum project. On our ESG side, this has been something that the company has obviously been focused on for many, many years. And the ability to have a saltwater processing project at 740 metres next to port on the Pan American Highway, hooked into grid power with the last electrical connection, with massive solar farms situated all around us, gives us a very, very strong balance sheet from an ESG perspective to move forward with our EIA submission at the end of this year and probably moving into the beginning of next year. And that is about delivering on a project roadmap to position Costa Fuego for an investment decision in late 26 and early 27. And what we're looking to have this into production is between 28, 29, 30 for Costa Fuego to be meeting this new demand requirement of some 6 to 9 million tonnes of additional metal supply required on an annual basis against a 24 million tonne market. Something that's going to be very, very hard to achieve when you're looking at one of the top 6 undeveloped projects, and our scale is 100,000 tonne per annum. So a lot rests on the shoulders of the majors, but unfortunately, when they look into their bag, we see a lot of the top 50 projects. In fact, the majors control around 38 of those major undeveloped projects, and they've been sitting in the pipeline for many decades. So I think that what you're looking at is the precursor over the next year or two as the market starts to switch towards an electrified future. It is almost unheard of in the copper sector to see such low stockpile inventories, a refining industry that has built in some 9 million tonnes of additional refining capacity without actually having the concentrate to supply it. So the Australian sector is now about to probably see a shift in focus towards what has been a very resilient metal this year. Probably iron ore and copper have been the most resilient in terms of year-on-year performance. And given those negative conditions and macros on economics for copper to be sitting where it is, looks like a very, very strong springboard for what is about to happen. And so that's very exciting for Hot Chili and what we're doing, and I really appreciate providing the update. Thank you.
Well done, Christian. That's a very interesting project indeed, and good to see you've got a lot of foot traffic down towards your booth as well, considering you are manning the fridge as well. You're very multi-talented in your skill set there. You good today? Good. It's a really good presentation. Thank you so much. All right, team, we're going to introduce you to, actually, he doesn't really need a lot of introduction because he's been a keen supporter of us at RIU, and you've seen him in different guises over the years. He's an early adopter of solid-state batteries, and he's been talking to us about it for a while. And it's interesting when you read, there's a lot of news flow at the moment about solid-state batteries, so it'll be really interesting to keep an eye on what he has to say. Iggy Tan, please come up. Would you please make Iggy Tan from Altech very welcome, everyone.
So you probably woke up at 3 a.m. wondering what the future of grid storage batteries are. No? Let me talk about the lithium industry and where he's heading to. In a lithium battery, there's a liquid electrolyte that is actually flammable. And the industry is trying to move to solid state technology. And essentially taking that liquid electrolyte and replacing it with a ceramic piece. That is the solid state. And it allows the lithium to go back and forth. Now, the lithium battery industry is concerned about lithium-ion battery fires. Essentially, it's a thermal runaway, very difficult to put out because it generates oxygen at the cathode end of the battery. A lot of people don't realize that lithium batteries have a limited temperature range. So at 0 degrees, your battery drops to 70% capacity. So if you have an EV vehicle in the very cold climates, it's a concern. Lithium-ion batteries don't actually operate that well also in desert conditions. So essentially, in a lithium battery, there are a lot of cooling fans. Nearly 30% of the energy in a battery is used to cool the battery down. So it actually doesn't operate well in very hot climates. The other thing is that the life of the battery, generally 8 years. In grid storage, you have to replace those batteries after 8 years, and it's a high capital cost. So also the industry is concerned of critical minerals in a lithium battery. Obviously lithium, you've seen the price of lithium being very volatile in the last few years. Graphite, 90% of graphite comes from China. So it represents a geopolitical risk, and the industry is concerned about that. And then cobalt, 70% of cobalt comes from the Republic of Congo. The industry is concerned about ethical supply of cobalt when you have child labor issues coming from that supply. And then finally, copper. There is enough studies that show copper mines needs to double to even meet the demand of EVs. So my question to you, ladies and gentlemen, is there a battery that is actually totally fireproof, operates in a large temperature range, and more than 15 years life? A battery that is lithium-free, cobalt-free, graphite-free, copper-free, and manganese-free. So introducing you to the Serenergy battery. Basically, it's a salt battery with nickel metal powder. The technology was developed by the Fraunhofer Institute in Germany over 8 years, and they spent nearly 35 million euros developing this technology. The chemistry has been around since the 80s, but the development is into the grid storage market. We have a joint venture with Fraunhofer where we own 75% of the project, and we're commercializing these batteries. As you can see here, the ceramic piece sitting in the metal cylinder. Each of those batteries are about 240 watts, and the best part of it is totally fireproof. They also can operate down to -40 degrees and up to temperatures of 60 degrees. And the reason for that, it has its own temperature regulation. When you charge the battery, it's endothermic, and when you discharge the battery, it's exothermic. The life of the batteries is beyond 8 to 10 years, up to 15 years or 6,000 cycles. So nearly double the life of a lithium battery. And the best part of it is the life of the battery operates in a wide temperature range, and we don't have any lithium, we don't have any cobalt, graphite, and so on. So how does the battery work? You've got a ceramic piece, which is the solid state. So it is solid state technology. And in the middle of that ceramic piece, we add salt and nickel metal powder. There is a positive probe in the middle, and the ceramic piece sits in a metal canister, which acts as a negative part of the battery. And you can see the picture of that ceramic piece in the metal cylinder. The beauty of the technology is when you charge the battery, sodium ions migrate through the ceramic piece, which is solid state, and it forms molten sodium on the other side of the battery. It's a self-forming anode. There's no copper, there's no graphite. The nickel is there to grab the chloride and allows the sodium to migrate. Okay? The unique part of this battery, it's a self-forming anode. When you charge the battery, it forms the anode. When you discharge the battery, it dissolves the anode. So hence, you don't need any copper, you don't need any graphite. So if you look at the discharge, you can see the sodium ions now migrating back, going through the ceramic piece, grabbing the chloride, and then becoming salt again. So very neat chemistry. How does this battery compare to other batteries? If you compare it to the lithium iron phosphate batteries, very similar energy density. The beauty is that the life is double. CapEx is much less because we don't have all those critical minerals. But the most important thing on that slide is the maintenance costs. There's hardly any maintenance costs. We don't have any cooling fans that we have to maintain. So very similar energy to LFP batteries. And in the end, we need all batteries to come online for the future. If you look at this graph, the bottom axis is how much energy a battery can transfer, and the vertical axis is how much power. So if you look at the red bit, the lithium ion at the top are nickel cobalt batteries, lots of power, and the bottom bit are LFP batteries, just a lot of energy that you can transfer. The beauty of our batteries is we sit right in the middle. We can provide energy as well as some power. So this is critical for the grid storage market. So our target market is the grid storage market. Let me explain to you what grid storage is. Basically, we have a lot of solar farms being built, wind turbines, and we're generating a lot of electricity during the day. Unfortunately, there is a surplus of energy during the day, and countries are actually discharging that energy to the ground. California wastes $3 billion every year, Germany $2 billion, and even Australia discharges renewable energy to the ground because during the day, there's just too much power. People are surprised about that. What happens when EVs come online? Well, they won't be able to charge straight from the grid. You have to have some storage. So grid storage is very simple. Big batteries sitting on the grid. During the day, when the sun's out, you charge these batteries, and at night you discharge it. It's called energy shifting. Now, in some countries, during the day, power is actually at a negative price. Not 0 cents, not 1 cent, negative. People have to pay to put their renewable energy onto the grid because there's so much power. All right. The Fraunhofer Institute has spent nearly 25 million euros in a pilot plant. They've built these batteries. They're operating. So this is not a research and development project. We're not starting from concepts. They have built these batteries and they're operating. So that's a 5 kilowatt battery under tests, and they've built 10 kilowatt batteries and so on. We were selected as a joint venture partner. We own 75% of the joint venture. And you can see some of the equipment here. They are actually producing the ceramics using alumina. There are a lot of additives that go into that allows that transfer of sodium, solid state technology. These tubes have to be sintered at 1600 degrees, high temperatures. And then you can see a picture of these tubes going. This is a 10 kilowatt battery undergoing tests. You take a cross section of that, you can actually see these cells, about 240 watts per cell. So our joint venture is to build a 120 megawatt battery plant in Saxony, Germany. So you can see here one of these cells. Saxony is on the border of Poland and the Czech Republic. And there's a lot of activities in electric vehicles and battery plants in Saxony, Germany. This is what our plant will look like. We're just in the final stages of launching the DFS. As you can see, a lot of solar panels on this plant. We use a lot of renewable energy, and we will be accredited as a green project by Cicero. This is our basic battery model, 60 kilowatts, 100 amps, 600 volts. There are 240 cells of these. We will then put it together into a sea container. 18 of these will go into a sea container, pre-assembled, and you can deliver this to your site just on the back of the truck, drop it on deck. So there's very simple installation. Drop it on deck, plug and play, and you have 1 megawatt connected to your grid within 5 minutes of delivery. If you know lithium-ion batteries, that's impossible. Yeah. Lithium-ion batteries have to be delivered in pieces, assemble on site, install, and so on. We are now finishing a DFS. We've designed the plant, and we have to produce one of these cells every 45 seconds from scratch, right? So the technology that we use is all German engineering. And the best part of it, with the auto industry in Germany, they're very used to automation and robotics. So this plant, as I said, we are going to launch, announce the DFS, very exciting technology. And we are also now talking to European banks on this project. They're very interested, and also grants. As you know, a bit like the IRA, there's a lot of money swirling around in Europe looking for these green projects. And we have commenced that grant application. We are also building 2 prototypes. So this is the first battery, the 60 kilowatt prototypes. And you can see some vision here of the prototypes being built, right? They had to modify the pilot plant to build these 60 kilowatt prototypes. As I mentioned, these ceramics have to be sintered at 1600 degrees. Once they're completed, they undergo some quality checks. It's key that there is no defects in these ceramic pieces. They then slide into the metal cylinder, and that acts as the negative part of the battery. And then within that battery, we add sodium chloride, salt, just common table salt, and nickel metal powder as granules. These batteries are then welded. The tops of the batteries are welded, and then they go through tests under temperature. So essentially, our basic model is a 60 kilowatt pack. And the number of people around Australia that ring us up and say, you know, can I get access to one of your batteries? Well, we really focus on Europe and the grid storage market. So we are talking to some off-takers. They're generally 2 German utility companies that are destined to go to renewable power. So they want batteries, and they would like all kinds of batteries, LFP batteries, our batteries, or redox flow. Here you see some vision of our plant design. As I said, 120 megawatts. We're looking to finalize some of the offtake, and within a couple of months we'll be announcing our DFS. And I would like you to join our journey on the grid storage sector. Thank you.
It's going to be a very interesting journey indeed. Striding in front of me on the stage, we see the great MD Andrew Radonjic from Venture Minerals. Now, there's been some interesting news out of your neck of the woods of late. Is it true that you hit a 6-month share price high? It's a big story happening.
Only 6 months.
Oh, you say, well, I don't know, mate. It's your story. You need to tell everyone what's happening and encourage them to get involved. Because I believe you'd be very, very happy. You've hit is the highest grade for a drill hit for a rare earth. Is that correct?
Absolutely correct, yes.
All right. Well, I'm interested to hear more and see a smile on your face. Would you please make Andrew very welcome, everyone?
Thanks, Chrissy, for that great introduction, and again, congratulations, Iggy, on a great presentation. One day I'll be able to do that, I hope. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Again, I'd like to thank the Vertical Events team for putting on such a great event at Explorers. I think it's 5 years in a row for us. We've gone through the COVID times together, but hopefully that's the last we see of those events. But yeah, today it's a little bit of a different presentation. I'm going to focus the entire presentation on Jupiter, which is the recent discovery of it, which is a large-scale, high-grade, clay-hosted rare earth deposit located in the Tier 1 jurisdiction of Western Australia. And it's also its most recent intersection, which was 48 metres at over 3,000 ppm total rare earth oxides, which is Australia's highest rare earth clay intersection. So I'll talk a lot more about that throughout the presentation. There's a disclaimer. Like I said, 48 metres at 3,000 ppm, not to be sneezed at. In amongst that 24 holes we received, of which 23 had mineralisation, we had results of over 10,000 ppm and 20,000 ppm, which was just shy of the highest result in Australia, which is 22,000 ppm. And certainly it seems as though the more holes we drill, the better results you get, which is a great sign. The other thing I'll talk about Jupiter, its location. We are located in West Australia in terms of close proximity, but between two plants, Lynas' existing Mount Weld concentrator and Iluka's current under construction rare earth processing refinery down near Eneabba. I won't talk much about Mount Lindesay today, except Kurt and I continue on their good work on the extracting the tin and boron out of the tin-rich borates we have there at Mount Lindesay. And recently we announced that we appointed Argonaut PCF to have a look at our Riley iron ore mine asset to undertake strategic review. Corporate snapshot, market cap's just under $30 million. We've been around since 2006. So enterprise value is in the high 20s. A tremendous value proposition when you compare us to companies like Meteoric Resources, that's code MEI, if you want to look it up. We're a comparable asset in Brazil, and they have a market cap of nearly $400 million. So listen to the story and then compare. The board, most of the board's been here with Venture for some time, but recently we've just had Philippa Leggett join us, and she has some very recent and in fact current rare earths experience to add to our board. Like I said, today I'll be very much focusing on Jupiter. So we'll just zoom in right there. And I'll talk a little bit about the rare earths, which I really haven't spoken about much, but there's a lot out there about rare earths and most people are starting to get educated on it. And obviously it's comprised of 15 elements plus yttrium, unique properties. Its uniqueness makes it a little bit of rare earth gets added to a lot of things to make it better, to make it work better. But the most important part is these magnet rare earths, neodymium, praseodymium, terbium and praseodymium and dysprosium are those elements which are most sought after, and their applications for the permanent magnets for the fast-growing decarbonisation of EV and wind turbines, etc. So the biggest issue with rare earths is that China dominates the market, producing like 60% of world production, mostly from clay-hosted deposits. That's why the rare earths are on just about everyone's critical mineral list. Very important, economic importance in the transition to renewable energy. Location, location, location. This project is very well located. It's only 300 kilometres from Port of Geraldton. We're next to a bitumen highway that goes to Mount Magnet. There's a gas pipeline running parallel to it, if you didn't know that. We're only 250 kilometres from Iluka's Eneabba refinery that's under construction and will be producing in 2025. And as far as West Australia is concerned, we're not that far either from the Mount Weld concentrator. Of course, they're building the rare earth carbonate plant in Kalgoorlie. So As far as the crow flies in Western Australia, we're very close to a couple of producing assets, but also we're close to port. How did Jupiter's story came about? And I'll just run you through a little bit of the history. First, we went out there and we identified some rare earths sitting essentially on the ground on a data set that the West Australian government had adjacent to our Golden Grove North project. We pegged that ground back in early 2023. We then did a joint venture in May 2023 because we recognised there was a tenement with 2 holes in it with clay-hosted mineralisation over 2,000 ppm. So we JV'd into that ground and we have pegged more ground around it. So at this stage, we've got 1,165 square kilometres, significant footprint. We're 80 kilometres east of Yalgoo. We are virtually almost in the middle of nowhere. No people, more importantly. Drilling program happened in June. We got results, put these results out on the 1st of August in 2023. Lots of intersection of 15 metres over 2,500 ppm. I want to point out that Jupiter sits here. So there's other mineralisation outside of Jupiter, but 15 metres to 2,500 ppm, quite consistently sitting within broader zones of 45 metres at 1,500 ppm. So that was very encouraging indeed. So we went ahead and did more drilling. We did mag, we did gravity, and we came up with a Jupiter target in November, early November this year. So this is all happening quite quickly. So we identified a 40 square kilometre target, coincidental mag and gravity, as you can see from that. And we interpreted with a little bit of deeper drilling that we're looking at a alkaline intrusive in that 40 square kilometres. And you can see some of the air core results, BRAC 36, 28 and 37, quite high grade, 28 metres at 2,200 ppm, 11 metres at 3,000 ppm, higher grade zones, again within that sort of broader 40 to 50 metres at 1,500 ppm. So very clear target. Now this is sitting within 1,165 square kilometres and there are rare earths outside of this target, so don't forget that. We did more work in late November. We announced a whole bunch of intersections from our first RC drilling, 25 holes completed, every hole at intersection. Again, we started getting consistent results, 20 to 30 metre widths of rare earth mineralisation over 2,000 ppm, up to 64 metres now, going over 1,000 ppm. The magnet rare earths averaging around 23%, which is quite often what you see with these clay-hosted deposits. And we have extremely low thorium and uranium, which probably means we don't have the monazite source below. At this stage, our JV, we'd sort of gone from 51% and we're heading towards a 70% earn-in. It's very important to remember this ground is part of that JV we picked up in Iron Duke. Now looking at some of the results, I'll just flat through. These are the best 10 results in the project to date. 7 of them just came out this last program. 48 metres at 1,800 ppm, 64 metres at 1,600, including 26 at 2,000 total rare earth oxides. Another 60 metres running 1,700, 30 metres at 2,200 included in that. This is the star intersection at the moment, 48 metres at 3,000 ppm, 30 metres at 3,000 ppm, including 12 at 4,600. And you go on and go on. And there's the 2 metres at 2% or 20,000 ppm sitting within 16 metres at 5,400 ppm. This is truly one of the highest grade clay-hosted deposits in Australia by far, and certainly the scale looks way above everyone else. So a bit of a summary about, there's a lot to digest there, but just to remind you, we've pruned our tenure back now to just under 1,000 square kilometres, 300 kilometres east of Geraldton. It's 40 square kilometre target. We've got some super high grades, consistently getting results. 90% of our holes have greater than 1,000 ppm in it so far. That's 61 drill holes. We've got a record drill intersection, some of the highest results, the highest result in Australia. We have consistently 20 to 30 metres over 2,000 ppm total rare earth oxides. Now, if you've got 40 square kilometres and you've got 20 to 30 metre thickness and you've got a density of 2, you can run the maths pretty quickly. I've done a resource model. It's not JORC compliant, but it's starting to look like 1.5 to 2 billion tonnes of this stuff in the clay. We haven't even touched the alkaline intrusion in hard rock yet. The great thing is that 23% of that is in the magnetic rare earths, and we've got up to 3,000 ppm neodymium, nearly 800 praseodymium, nearly 700 dysprosium, and just over 100 in terbium oxides. Again, here we're talking about the key here is the location. The infrastructure's there. We're in Western Australia. We're not in Brazil, for example, and this is a great place to build another rare earth mine. Next steps going forward, we've got another 57 drill holes out of the 81 drill hole program from the stage 1 resource definition program we completed before Christmas. Expect those results shortly. There's 2 batches there outstanding. We've already got stage 2 ready, and so the POW's been approved, and that's scheduled to commence later this month. Metallurgical test work's in progress at the moment, so expect some initial results to come out next month, and we're targeting that maiden clay-hosted rare estimation to be done around about the end of this first quarter. I've got a little bit of time to talk about the other assets, just very briefly. Like I said, Mount Lindsay, it's one of the largest undeveloped tin tungsten projects in the world. We are doing an underground feasibility study. We're looking to produce sustainable tin and tungsten production, and we're working on extracting more tin and boron out of that through Curtin, and some more news have come out of that. The Riley Iron Ore Mine, like I said, Argonaut PCF are doing strategic review of that. But we've got good joint ventures here. One in the Southwest project with Chalice, and also we have a joint venture with Sensor, which we signed around about May last year. So they're going to hit the ground shortly on Golden Grove North. So just summing up conclusions. Again, like I said, you can do the maths. We've got ultra high grade results in the clays. We're focusing on the clays. It's cheap, it's cost effective. We've got 20 to 30 metre widths over 2,000 ppm, 40 square kilometres. It's going to be our immediate focus from here on in. We're heading towards that maiden resource quite rapidly. And like I said, critical rare earth minerals in a great jurisdiction. Mount Lindsay, as we said, we'll get the feasibility work done. That'll happen in the background, and we'll look to evaluate the opportunity in the short term at O'Reilly. Thank you.
Right on, Andrew. It's nice to see you smiling. Another fellow up on stage who's always smiling, the big fella, Dean Tuck. He leads. Is the rest of your team here today, Dean?
Yes, ma'am.
We should know the rest of your team by the big smiles on their face that they usually have. He leads a very, very energetic team of explorers out there, and I believe you've got a lot happening up near Exmouth at the moment with Dreadnought, so I'll let you explain to everyone why they should come on your journey. Would you please make Dean Tuck very welcome, everyone?
Thank you, Chrissy, and thank you everyone for being here, and for everyone that's keeping me nice and busy on Investor Hub, and everyone watching online. It's a pleasure to be up here again at the start of the year. RIU Explorers is what's been a rough couple of months, is a fantastic reminder of how much I love this industry and why. And so it's fantastic and an honor to be up here again this year, talking about Dreadnought and what we have in store for everyone. So Dreadnought Resources, it's been a rough year for us. We've board and management have put in 6.2 million. Over half of that's gone in over the last couple of years, and the share price was much higher. So we certainly share the pain with our shareholders as we look at the performance over the past year. But it also is cause for reflection. And the last time that we were at these prices in this market cap was 2021. And in the following months from RIU in 2021, we went on to discover the Bukathana outcropping nickel copper PGE Gossan. We went on to discover the Orion copper gold Gossans up in the Kimberley, the outcropping Yin rare earth ironstones, and the Gifford Creek carbonatites. It's doing the exact same low cost, high impact, boots on ground exploration that we're going to be doing this year. So while it has been dark, it is always darkest before the dawn, and we are absolutely geared up and looking forward to getting back out there for 2024. One of those main things that we were working on last year was the Mangaroon rare earths, a discovery that was started in June 2021, and we delivered over 40 million tons of resource in the last year and a half on that. It is a major resource right next door to Hastings, who I'm sure lots of people saw present earlier. It is a world's top mining jurisdiction. We have the carbonatites, we have IMREC test work underway, and a lot of significant pre-development work and approvals have been working in the background. Not only do we have the ironstones that are similar to Hastings, who is building the mine next door, but we also have those elusive carbonatites that we're talking about, which is chockers full of other critical metals, such as niobium, phosphates, scandium, and the rest. We've only barely touched the exploration on those things. We have some upcoming catalysts. We have that MREC test work being done, but by and large, in this depressed rare earth market, we are not going to be seeing lots of news come from the rare earths. Because unlike our rare earth peers that we've been partnered with for the last year, we're not a single commodity, single project company. We are explorers. And this year, as Paul always pressures us, what is going to change our life? And what do we see as our life-changing opportunities going into 2024? For the last year and a half, while we've been proving up that rare earth resource, we have also been accumulating significant land holdings in unloved and very prospective gold regions. Central Yilgarn, T1 Viper, T2 Honey, Mangaroon Gold, the ever-expanding Star of Mangaroon Camp, and the Taraji Yampi copper gold discovery, which we also made in 2021, are all things that we see as life-changing opportunities that are going to see the focus of our exploration efforts this year. In the background, we have the nickel copper work with First Quantum on the money intrusion, and we have the rare earths waiting for a return in market sentiment. We can only control what we can control, and so we are going to work on finding that next discovery that's going to drive our share price higher, and the rare earths will sit there returning for a return in market sentiment, because it is the resources industry and markets are cyclical. So Central Yilgarn. What is Central Yilgarn? We've accumulated 1,400 square kilometers, over 150 strike kilometers of greenstone belt, in what I call the Bermuda Triangle of the Yilgarn Craton. This area was hundreds of kilometers away from existing infrastructure, tracks, and water sources, and did not see a lot of the early stage gold exploration that you saw on the roads out through the pastoral leases out to Kalgoorlie and north from there. The opportunity here is you have an unloved greenstone belt like Gruyere was back when those discoveries were made in 2013, 2018, whichever one it was. You have Hemi, which was made recently, areas that were thought not to have much gold, but then all it takes is one or two drill holes into the right spot, some true believers to see what happens. So our priority focus, we have walk-up drill targets. We put out an announcement a couple of days ago. We have some very exciting targets, which I'll touch on, and define additional targets within this camp. Upcoming catalysts. End of March, start of April, our team will be boots on ground at Central Yilgarn with the rigs turning by the end of March, start of April. We'll be drilling the T1 Viper target, Honey, Leghorn, Chicken Little. Next steps from that, the same, the boots on ground, and we're going to be mapping, surface sampling, generating those next targets while testing the walk-up drill targets that we have sitting there. Leghorn and Honey, we got a photo here. Honey is pretty exciting. It looks, we had Ian Gordon when we picked up the Strickland project, and Ian Gordon was the MD of Ramelius when they had Wattle Dam, going and making them and turning them into the company they became. And I showed him a photo of this gold that came from the shallow pit at T2 that we call Honey now. And that's free gold inside an altered ultramafic. And the first thing he said when he looked at that rock was, "This is Wattle Dam, when can we drill this?" Well, we're going to be drilling it in a couple of weeks. And along with that, we have Leghorn, which is a 3.5 kilometer long anomaly. We have previous intercepts in there with proven mineralization, and we have these walk-up IP targets sitting beneath it, waiting to be drilled, and those things will be drilled in the next couple of weeks. We also have Viper. The analog for Viper has always been Copperhead out of Bullfinch, which produced close to 1 million ounces of gold at 5 to 8 grams per ton. High grade, beautiful, high grade deposit. We have an air core hole that's been put over this area previously. We've got proven gold, complex BIF area where there's no outcrop, an IP anomaly coincident with an EM plate from previous drilling that wasn't assayed for gold in a BIF horizon that's cooking in arsenic. And so we have an absolute terror of a walk-up drill target to make a high-grade BIF-hosted gold discovery at Viper. And again, we'll be putting drills into this in the coming weeks. But Central Yilgarn is not the only gold project we've been accumulating over the years. The Mangaroon gold we see as one of the bigger opportunities that we have, and it's constantly emerging, the gift that keeps on giving. Mangaroon's a massive project area, so it contains our rare earth project and the nickel, but we also have a lot of gold there. It's an unloved history that never received a battery. If you want to talk more about the history, I'll be having a beer a bit later on, happy to chat about that. But the opportunity here is a major discovery in an unloved province. You got Tatina Gold Belt, Pogo, Dublin Gulch. We see evidence for an intrusion-related gold system with an orogenic overprint, or Charters Towers and over in Queensland. The Star of Mangaroon is the historical mine that people know about. This thing has been drilled, a few holes in the 80s and 90s, produced some shallow high-grade gold. This was discovered and mined previously by the pastoralists themselves, and there hasn't been really that much of a modern gold exploration push. Despite that, we have high-grade gold hits. We confirmed some of those hits at the end of last year, trying to fingerprint this system and confirm the mineralization and the opportunity that's there of the star. Looking at that 1 kilometer strike along that mineralized structure, we have Popeye to the south. We have rock chips and historical workings down there going 30 and 20 grams per ton. There's never been a single drill hole put into that. There's not a drill hole into that 1 kilometer stretch outside the 200 meters of the Star of Mangaroon workings and nothing below 150 meters. But that's just 1 kilometer of a 10 to 14 kilometer long shear zone, and every stage of exploration we do expands the footprint of this gold camp. This is now a 15 by 10 kilometer gold camp, and I guarantee you it's going to get even bigger. The more work we do, the more targets we generate. This is the first time that this ground has been consolidated and had modern exploration. Any exploration geo loves to wave their arms in an unloved area and say, we're going to come out here and do modern exploration for the first time, and we're going to prove up new things. Well, it actually works occasionally. And at the Star of Mangaroon, it just keeps on delivering. The Vibe Tiger target, which we see sitting there, that is a stronger gold and soil anomaly and a stronger Pathfinder anomaly than the Star of Mangaroon itself. And it's sitting a kilometer and a bit away, and it's never been looked at, never been prospected over, never been drilled for sure. So we will be out here after drilling Central Yilgarn. We'll be drilling out at Mangaroon May, June, and then generating additional targets within that Star of Mangaroon camp, and what we believe will be additional camps within the Mangaroon footprint as our stream sediment sampling program gets wrapped up and we continue processing that. So we see the Mangaroon gold opportunity. It's not just about the star. It's not just about the Mangaroon shear. It is continuing into a significant camp scale opportunity that has multiple high-grade gold discoveries. And we'll be finding out this year. We'll have our geos, boots on ground, crawling all over this, mapping, soil sampling, and drilling this in the coming months. Which takes us up to our third life-changing opportunity in the Taraji Yampi project up in the Kimberley. This area was off limits since 1978, one of the first companies to get boots on ground. And in 2021, we made that Orion discovery, one of the first targets we drilled undercover. We have the Orion. We've just been reviewing that lately with Jared Tripp. I don't know if any of you know geos might know Trippy, very well regarded in the industry. And using that those diamond holes that we drilled last year and that incomplete drill program that we did, we have now confirmed that the Orion is a palitic mafic VMS deposit. Geology banter around, that's essentially, we're looking at a DeGrussa style mineralization. So we've got copper gold, we're looking for a camp of this VMS sort of style of mineralization, multiple lodes in this area. And we've confirmed that the grants are epithermal style veins sitting close within that area. We have 2 styles of copper gold mineralization, both of which are going to be getting our attention this year. So we made that Orion discovery in 2021, one of the best drill intercepts. There's others, but this is the best one. 16 meters at 2.2, silver, gold, and the cobalt to go with it. Beautiful, high temperature, great grades. It's confirmed over strike and depth, and the geophysics showing going at depth. And we should have some assays back from that drill program that we did last year. We only tested a fraction of the targets. We have awful conductors, and that program remains largely undrilled, and we will get up there to finish that business this year. We'll also be conducting IP surveys over this area to tap into that unrecognized previously epithermal potential that are represented by grants and rough triangle. So you can see more targets being generated into the 13 Orion lookalikes we already have, and drilling those in addition to the epithermal targets we define with the IP surveys. Other opportunities, Mangaroon and Bresnahan. So Mangaroon sitting there for the last couple of years working with First Quantum has been very, very prolific. It's been very beneficial for us. We've identified the 50-kilometer long money intrusion. We've now confirmed high-grade, high-tenor massive sulfides. That is an active system that is forming massive sulfides. That is extremely rare and very exciting. And we've also now unlocked the geophysical signature with the combination of IP and EM to really lay the groundwork forward to exploring the rest of the money intrusion. We're halfway through a drilling program that we commenced at the end of last year. There's diamond tails and IP surveys and downhole EM still pending to be done. That is a fantastic opportunity of this project to deliver some nickel discoveries. Bresnahan is a project that we pegged last year, a year and a half ago, for unconformity heavy rare earths. We ended up inadvertently, or somewhat on purposely, we picked up an entire unconformity uranium basin, because the unconformity heavy rare earth model is essentially the same as that as the unconformity uranium model, with a slightly different mix of fluids. So when uranium was unloved, we inadvertently pegged over 4,000 square kilometers of unconformity uranium basin here in WA. We have walk-up drill targets that were defined by Vale and Cameco right before 2011. So we have proven uranium mineralization, an entire basin consolidated with walk-up drill targets defined by Cameco and Vale. We see this as a fantastic opportunity to commercialize either by JV, spin out, or partnership. So in summary, what can we expect for 2024? Major high-grade gold discoveries at Central Yilgarn and Mangaroon. Drilling at Central Yilgarn, drilling at Mangaroon, rinse and repeat, mixed in with a healthy dose of target generation and target definition work. And if our geos are worth their merit, hopefully they'll bring me home some high-grade rock chips as well. Or if I'm lucky, I'll be out there doing it myself. Continue to advance the rares in the background. Unfinished business at Taraji Yampi, chasing up the Orion lookalikes and the epithermal potential. Continue with the money intrusion programs and commercialize Bresnahan. So the takeaway message, we will continue to generate strong news flow throughout 2024, doing low-cost, high-impact, boots-on-ground exploration that Dreadnought is known for. We will continue to build upon our track record of discoveries in multiple commodities here in the great state of Western Australia, and we are poised to deliver more this year. We continue to have strong support from our board. We have 6.2 million invested to date and 15% of the board ownership. So we are very strongly aligned with shareholders. We are not a lifestyle company, and you will be seeing a lot of us out in the field this year trying to find that next discovery to return to our shareholders. Thank you very much.
Love the way you're so excited about that, being out in the field and exploring and doing some great work. Now, just a reminder, I didn't say to you all at the start of the day, please pop your mobile phones on silent. That would be very handy. If you need them charged, there's a number of charging stations around the place, especially over in the Harbour Masters room. If you need a coffee and you need to escape everything that's going on in here for a little while, then you can do so. We've got a couple of coffee stations, but you can also go out to the bar. So as long as you've got your lanyard on and a little bit here, you can go into the bar and they'll give you a complimentary coffee, so you can sit outside and just take in a bit of the ambience of Fremantle. It's 27 degrees today, so today is possibly the day to actually go outside of the hotel, because we've just had a killer Matthew Boss 22 days in a row over 35 degrees. Pretty impressive, isn't it? Yeah. Where have you been exploring lately? Have you been out in the heat or based in the office? You have been at Sandstone?
Yeah.
So you're going to focus on the gold for us for this presentation?
Yeah, it's been quite hot out there. I think it's certainly hit about 40, well over 40 up at Sandstone.
Yeah, look, I'm a Kalgoorlie girl and I don't, that way is a bit hot even for me. Would you please make welcome Matthew very much today. Let me just put my false teeth back in, shall I? Would you please make Matthew very welcome today as he continues on with the Alto story for himself. Thanks, Matt.
Right. Thanks, Christy. Hi, everyone. It's great to be here. And thanks for RIU for putting on another great event. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about Alto, particularly what we've done over the last 12 months, and I guess the strategy going forward. We've certainly grown our resource, which is pretty exciting. And we've started to do some low-cost regional exploration work, which is really starting to deliver. So it's really opening up Sandstone a lot more than really where we've been focusing on just that resource side. And I think it's just starting to demonstrate the project's got a lot more to give. So very quickly, I'll let you read that in your own time. So Alto Metals, so we're an advanced West Australian gold explorer. We've got a dominant land position over the majority of the sandstone greenstone belt in Western Australia at 740 square kilometres. And we're in the East Murchison. It's a fantastic jurisdiction to be operating in. We've got surrounded by multi-million ounce deposits, a number of operating mines, fantastic infrastructure. So it's a really, really good place to advance a project. Our resource, in April last year, we announced an increase to 832,000 ounces, optimised using a $2,500 pit shell. All of those resources are open pittable, nice and shallow, 90% of it's less than 150 metres from surface, and good grade at 1.5 grams per tonne. And more recently, we've started hitting the, I guess, the regional side, and I'll walk through where the resource is and where it sits and where we've been focusing on, but we've started to focus on some very low-cost, much broader regional exploration. That's really starting to deliver, and we're really excited about that. And we're well funded. We raised some money, some funding last year, and we closed 2023 out with 3.5 in the bank. So certainly in a good spot to advance some of our exploration activities. So very quickly on the corporate side, still a very tight capital structure. Our market cap sitting at about very, very modest $20 million on an EV per ounce basis. That equates to about $20 an ounce. When you think about where the gold price is at the moment, there's certainly a big gap between EV an ounce and gold price. And I think that's why we're starting to get quite a bit of attention. And the gold price, as it continues to rise, and we're sort of certainly seeing a lot of inbound interest coming back to the goldies, which is great to see. certainly a lot of quality projects will start to stand out a lot more. The board, a very small board of only 3 directors, very well known, and supported by 2 sort of key gold consultants. So it's a really, really targeted team, quite small, and that's how we like to run. So in April last year, we announced a resource update of 832,000 ounces. That's constrained within $2,500 pit shells. As I said, most of that resource, 90% of it's less than 150 metres from surface. It's really, really shallow. Part of our strategy was to really define, I guess, low-cost, open-pittable ounces that can help support a standalone operation, and then we can continue to drill to grow that resource. Importantly, metallurgy, so the metallurgical results are we're getting up to 98%, so that's just showing that the gold can be liberated through a very simple CIL process. So we're ticking all the right boxes, seeing all the things that investors want to see as we want to advance this project forward. The project itself, it's hosted within a 20-kilometre long corridor, and the reason we've been focusing on the area is that's where all of our resources are. But as I said, broadly, outside of that, we've got an overall 740 square kilometres that covers the majority of that sandstone greenstone belt, which has already produced over 1.3 million ounces of gold and has a total endowment over 3 million ounces as of today. So these are just some of the highlights. So on the back of the resource coming out in April, we were back out there drilling. We've been focusing on one of our deposits at Indomitable that I'll talk about. And I guess these results speak for themselves. We're just continually delivering some fantastic results. And not only that, we drilled some holes at the Lords earlier in the year, and that's really just continuing to demonstrate that the Lord Nelson and the Lords corridor will continue to grow and deliver some exceptional high-grade results. So this is just a snapshot on where we sit. And as you can see there, we're surrounded by a number of operating mills. Getting into sandstone is great. I mean, you can either fly up there, you can drive up. It takes about 8 hours to drive up to sandstone. Charter planes to fly there, or you can get commercial flights to either Mount Magnet or into Leinster. Supported by fantastic infrastructure. There's sealed roads running through the project. There's a small town at Sandstone. We've got 2 houses there, so the guys sort of, you know, when the team's up there, they'll stay at the house and they can drive out. It's only about a 10k drive to a number of the targets. And so it's really easy to operate in there. And as you can see, we have the best thing about Alto and our project, as I see it, is the optionality. When we're talking about we want to build a standalone operation, we can see our resources growing to support that. That's what the focus has been on the entire time. But we have that optionality around. There's a number of mills in the area. So having that difference between whether we look at what the options are, whether it's standalone or other alternatives. But for us, very much the focus right now is on that, advancing it as a standalone operation. So this is the Alpha Domain. And Alpha Domain is within our project. It hosts that entire 832,000 ounces. We're down in the southeast of the corner, and interestingly, you've got on the eastern side there's a big sort of Edale shear zone, and then what you're looking at here is a lot of structural interp laid over magnetics, and basically on the eastern side we have the shear zone. The rocks are then refolding around themselves, which is where the Lord's granodiorite is in that sort of like fold closure, and then we're running along a long 20-kilometre long corridor up to Indomitable, where the rocks then wrap around themselves. So we're getting a really nice sort of nose fold closure there, and that's a really nice trap site, and there's certainly some nice structures running through there, and that's where we've been having some great results from Indomitable. And that then continues up to Bull Oak, where we put a maiden resource earlier this year. But sort of really this has been the whole focus. We can see these resources continuing to grow. And for us, the last few years has really been focused on just that Alpha Domain, and we have not really been paying a lot of attention to our regional side. This is just an example of the Lord's granodiorite, which hosts our key majority of our current resource. Lord Nelson and Lord Henry were 2 historic mines. They were mined out the oxide, both down to Lord Nelson down to 90 metres and Lord Henry down to 40, and they hit fresh rock, and the previous owners could stop mining. So we've drilled below those pits along strike the resource, the mineralisation from Lord Nelson, the north of that granodiorite is plunging to the south. Mineralisation at Lord Henry, at the bottom of that granodiorite, it's more of a stacked loads. And so we think the source is probably about 2/3 of the way down that granodiorite. It's very similar to the, King of the Hills, Tarmula style that we're targeting there, and we can see that resource as we continue to drill it further to the south, continue to grow. And this, moving on to Indomitable, which as I said was at the top of that, the Alpha Domain, and Indomitable's huge. It's currently over 3.5 kilometres long. It's a very, very large oxide footprint. We believe that that's a strong signature of something much, much larger at depth. In some areas, we're getting a very deep weathering profile. In some areas, it's going down to 190 metres and we're still an oxide. We've certainly grown that resource quite rapidly from 70,000 ounces to 200,000 ounces. It's open in all directions. We're now targeting to where targeting at depth. There's been very little drilling below 200 metres. The drilling that we have done is RC drilling. We've certainly continued to hit some strong mineralisation. But for us, the next strategy with Indomitable is it really warrants some more diamond drilling there and targeting those much deeper tapping structures. And I think that sort of can potentially open up that whole sort of area. So I just wanted to go on just quickly to the regional targeting. And as I said, so really the focus has been on the Alpha domain and growing those resources. And we haven't really looked at the much larger regional aspects of sandstone. And at the back end of last year, we undertook quite a large geochemical multi-element soil sampling program over Sandstone North. Sandstone North is a really interesting prospect for us. It's certainly towards the north of the project. It's between two major shear zones, the Edale shear and then the UME shear on the western side. And there's a key sort of north-south interpreted structure running through there. So, and there's also some historical drilling, which is exceptionally high grade, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But it had all the hallmarks of, this is probably one of our more advanced regional targets that we really want to go and test. So we undertook a very, very low cost source program out there, and it came back with a really strong gold and gold pathfinder anomaly over 6 kilometres long, certainly north of the historical drilling. So it's really sort of jumped out at us as a really compelling target. It's very coherent with the north-south interpreted structures that are there. So what's next for us at Sandstone North? There's an infill program starting next week. The original program was on 400 metre spacing, so very, very broad spacing. We're going to go in and infill that first to really define that target before we send initially an air core rig out there to test some of those, test that strongest anomaly, and then follow that up with some RC drilling. So we're really sort of just managing that low-cost exploration on Sandstone North. Interestingly, if you look at the very bottom of that image there, you'll see where the historical drilling is just to the north. There's a line there that gave a similar sort of soil anomaly, which was drilled and didn't really return anything that's too compelling to follow up. But the old timers had chased some of the mineralisation further to the north, which is what the drilling was based on. I guess where I'm going is that you look at that soil anomaly compared to what we're now targeting, and you can see why we're quite excited about the size of that anomaly. It's very, very strong. And for us now going to infill that, we'll really just better define it. And so therefore the air core drilling will help to get down sort of further. And I'll show you the historical drilling at Sandstone North. So this is the target. This is what we're looking at. These are short strike length, exceptionally high grade plunging chutes. At Sandstone North, this is already open. This is the historical drilling. It's already open to the at depth it is plunging to the northwest. The intention for us, as I said, is to go out there. Once we've completed the soils, we'll roll up an air core rig out there, and then that will be followed by an RC program. And then we want to go and test not only the target, the source program target, but also this target here, which we believe is going to continue at depth as well. But there's some exceptionally high grade there, so you can see why we're pretty excited about it as one of our sort of exciting regional targets. And I think it's just a great example of the number of regional targets that Sandstone overall hosts. And I guess in this market at the moment, it's really giving us the opportunity to sort of, I guess, sit back a bit and look at some of these targets and then really sort of chase some of the higher priority targets. But I guess grade is king, and the high grade that Sandstone North can deliver is a great thing for us to sort of to look at. So soil starting next week on that, and hopefully drilling this in the next few months. And I said, this is the multiple regional targets over this whole Sandstone project, and really it's continuing that targeting process, and we continue to evaluate all of the targets, and sort of we have quite a large funnel from where our resource growth is. So if we're looking at resource growth, or if we're looking at driving new discoveries, and the strategy at the moment is dual pronged on resource growth and hopefully leading to a few new discoveries there. So Alto. I think for where we sit at 832,000 ounces, that probably, well, I mean, I think our ground position alone justifies our existing market cap. With the resource base that will continue to grow, as I said, we've been focusing on just growing our resource ounces, which are open pittable, so it's going to be a much lower cost to initially get up. We have got that dominant land position. It is a growing resource, and we have multiple targets out there. And the way that we're progressing this at the moment is, we're being mindful of our cash. We're approaching exploration in a very systematic way, and we believe that's going to lead to some new discoveries, hopefully at Sandstone North. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Matthew. Yes. And where am I going to go to next? I'm going to go to Andrew Penkethman. Now, Andrew is from Ardea Resources, and there are some really exciting things coming out of what Ardea is doing at the moment. In particular, they've got 2 little bits of paperwork that they're waiting to finalise some execution on, and they're doing this in I'm trying to find the right word so that the ASX doesn't get cross with me, but in conjunction with 2 very, very well-known Japanese companies. So is there enough time for you to get on board and get some upside from it? Let's hear what he has to say. Would you please make Andrew very welcome, everyone?
Thanks very much, Chrissy, and thanks also to the Vertical Events team for putting on another terrific event, and it's terrific to see the huge turnout here today for day 1 of the conference. I'm going to be providing an update today on Ardea's Kalgoorlie Nickel project and outlining the progress that the team's making on advancing our Goongarrie hub. Standard disclaimer, you're welcome to look at the presentation in detail in your own time, which is available on the ASX and Ardea website. So the foundational building blocks for every project are the people and the projects, and during this presentation I'll be outlining the reasons why Ardea ticks both boxes in a compelling way. So everyone in the Ardea board has the relevant experience from discovery, study management, project development and operations, and that ranges from very small projects through to mega projects as well. We've got a very committed team that's reflected in our very tight capital structure. For a company that's first listed on ASX in February 2017, we've still got just over 197 million shares on issue. We maintain well-funded with $19.6 million in the Treasury at the end of the December quarter, and very importantly, no debt. So other key people are our entire workforce, and I've only got room on this slide to show our key executive management team, but members of the team are at booth 50 at the conference, and I'd encourage you to come and introduce yourself and ask any questions you've got. So the key features of the KMP are the globally significant resource size, so 6.1 million tonnes of contained nickel and some 386,000 tonnes of contained cobalt. This is one of the largest nickel resources in the world. We completed a PFS and announced the results on the 5th of July last year, and it demonstrated a robust project development just north of the city of Kalgoorlie-Boulder. We're working with quality partners in the Japanese consortium, Sumitomo Metal Mining and Mitsubishi Corporation, and targeting executing final agreements at the end of the March quarter, and that will enable us to commence the DFS, which will be fully funded and have a pathway to making a final investment decision and ultimately developing the Goongarrie hub. So there's been a lot of discussion in recent times about the nickel sector, and in particular the Australian nickel sector, and that's mainly on the back of the rapid increase in production from Chinese-dominated supply out of Indonesia. But the underlying fundamentals for the nickel sector remain that unprecedented growth through traditional markets like stainless steel and the growth in electric vehicle and battery energy storage. That thematic hasn't changed. The nickel market's currently in surplus but it is forecast to flip over to deficit, and we will see increases in the nickel price. This is the perfect time for Ardea to be completing a DFS and developing a globally significant project. We don't want to be doing that in a boom time environment where we have access challenges to key people and are paying top dollar rates. Our timing is perfect. And the underlying fundamentals for ethical and sustainable supply chains have been reinforced by the US Inflation Reduction Act and the European Union Critical Raw Materials Act. So now is the time to get set in the nickel sector. So this image shows that the majority of the world is classified as a medium to high risk resource investment development location. But Australia is very much at the top of the list as a low risk destination, and at the top of the Australian list is Western Australia. Our project couldn't be better located, being just 70 kilometres northwest of the city of Kalgoorlie-Boulder. And then there's also been a lot of discussion about nickel battery chemistries, and the underlying fundamental is that no other chemistry compares with nickel because of the energy density and the long battery range. And obviously we've all seen the rapid uptake of EVs on our roads, but those nickel-dominated cathodes are going to pass through into trucks, buses and ships. So a bit more on the project. So our location shown in the images on the top right, and then we zoom in on our Goongarrie hub shown in green. So with the Japanese consortium, the agreements we're negotiating are focused purely on Goongarrie, and then we've got all the other KMP tenements shown there in red. So we do have that internal growth pipeline already within the company. Most importantly, we've got access to the skilled workforce, infrastructure, and we're very proud of our team based in our West Kalgoorlie office. To put the KMP resource into perspective, here are the largest nickel resources in the world. Ardea's KMP is one of only 2 Australian resources that makes the top 10 and is the largest nickel cobalt resource in the country. The ore reserve that we announced with our PFS last year is 1.36 million tonnes of contained nickel and 99,000 tonnes of contained cobalt. And that's underpinned by over 5,000 drill holes for over 250 kilometres of drilling. We've had a lot of presentations already today talking about the funds and the time into the money going into their projects. Well, we've done most of the drilling already. There's been a huge amount of time and effort to get the company to the stage we're at. So the results from last year's PFS, our ore reserves are shown on this image in red, and our direct links to infrastructure are highlighted, and then we've got our annual nickel and cobalt production shown in the top right. So Goongarrie is unique. Of all the laterites anywhere in the world, and there's a number of factors such as preferential weathering, but we've got premium goethite ore, and in places we've got intercepts of over 100 metres at 1% nickel. This is a rarity. Most nickel deposits are only 20 to 40 metres thick. And this figure through our Goongarrie South deposit highlights the continuity of the mineralisation. So the nickel grade envelope shown in blue, and then the cobalt in red. So we've got continuous high quality goethite mineralisation, direct infrastructure links, and then if we look at the same image here, these are the resource nickel grades and the open pit designs. So the key feature of laterites, it tends to be free dig, very low mining costs, very low strip ratio, and they contribute to our very low operating costs. And just another key feature that the Ardea team's developed is the recognition and lodging IP applications on mineralised neutralisers. So just draw your attention to the core photo in the bottom right. So the brown material's goethite and the coarse white nodules are magnesite. We screen this material, the fines report to our main atmospheric leach feed, and then the white coarse nodules are used to neutralise the acid discharge. But then I guess the difference with most projects, they'll use conventional limestone with 0 nickel and cobalt credits. We've got background nickel and cobalt values, so this contributes to our production profile and our low operating cost. This is the plant layout defined in last year's PFS, 3.5 million tonne per annum project with 2 atmospheric leach circuits and 1 and 2 high pressure acid leach circuits, each at 1.5 million tonnes per annum and a 500,000 tonne per annum AL circuit. The key takeaway here is it's all conventional proven technology. There's nothing new, novel or risky in our flow sheet. This figure and the image on the left highlights that the majority of nickel production last year was from laterites. This trend is set to continue in the years ahead, but we need supply chain diversity and security, and that's where the KMP comes into play. And then the image on the right, courtesy of Benchmark Mineral Intelligence, shows that most of the current nickel production from Indonesia, despite being opaque, has operating costs between about $5,000 and $15,000 US a tonne. This compares very favourably to Ardea's C1 OPEX of under $6,000 US a tonne. So we're hearing the headlines about mine closures, challenging project economics. With Ardea's OPEX at Goongarrie, you can see we can compete globally. And again, this is another image. This is courtesy of Standard & Poor's, and it's the forecast nickel cash cost curve at 2027. And again, you can see Ardea's C1 OPEX on the left-hand side in a lower cost quartile when we also take into account the cobalt byproduct credit. And some of the PFS financial metrics are also shown on this slide. So for a mega project, these are compelling returns. The Ardea team's been incredibly busy working on the DFS. And as I mentioned, our timing's perfect to be able to commence this in the June quarter. We've done all the hard work in the scoping, and we're finalising the assessment of bids and the budget at the moment. Spent a great deal of time liaising with Sumitomo Metal Mining and Mitsubishi Corporation. They are excellent to deal with. They understand the strategic nature of the KMP Goongarrie hub, and we're working together to be able to finalise executed agreements by the end of the March quarter. And we look forward to seeing the specific nickel laterite expertise from Sumitomo Metal Mining and the global resources sector experience from Mitsubishi Corporation being reflected in everything we do to develop a globally competitive, large-scale resources project. With the PFS, we were able to highlight the high ESG credentials of the project, and that's through initiatives such as in-pit tailings disposal, so we minimise the environmental footprint of the project. We've also got very low CO2 emissions, and we compare that 11.9 kilograms of CO2 per kilo of nickel produced. Some of the producers in Indonesia are emitting 60 to 90 kilograms of CO2 per kilo of nickel produced. So you can see we're very low by global standards. We're also in the fortunate position of having a very large tenement base. And yes, we're focused on developing Goongarrie, but we don't lose sight of the exploration potential for battery and critical minerals. And that enables the company to have that growth pipeline well into the future with projects we already control 100%. And we did complete an EIS hole late last year, and we've got a fantastic shareholder base. Unfortunately, one of our shareholders, Ollie DeP, passed away, and we have named one of the intersections at Highway Julie Elizabeth in honour of his wife. So again, we can't thank our shareholders enough, and this is a small way that we can acknowledge some of the input from our shareholders. So just to reiterate, we have a very large strategic tenement with portfolio with direct infrastructure access. It's poised for development. We enjoy fantastic local, state and federal government support, and that's shown through Ardea being granted major project status. All of the recent nickel and battery and critical roundtables, Ardea has been privileged to be part of those discussions, and we're very keen to continue working with government to maximise the opportunity for all of Australia with our battery and critical minerals sector. We'll continue to work with the Japanese consortium to finalise agreements and complete a very high quality DFS and progress the project towards a final investment decision and development. And most importantly, it's our people that will make this happen. So I hope I've been able to demonstrate that with the people and projects, Ardea is perfectly poised for growth. And please, if you've got any questions, come and see myself at the team at booth 50. Enjoy the rest of the event.
Well done, Andrea. Andrea, how do I say your last name properly, mate?
Penkethman.
Penkethman, thank you very much. It's one of those ones that always stresses me out, and I see it. He's such a happy bloke, and I hope that I say it correctly each time, and sometimes I don't. Go out and have a chat with him at the booth. That would be fabulous. Now, this name's an easy one. Will Robinson. Do you get people ask you about the TV series you were in as a child often?
Yes.
Yeah, I thought so. What year were you born?
Well, she would have been about the same time. I don't think my parents were aware of it though.
63 to 68. I was
well,
wondering if
okay.
your parents were having a bit of fun or not. It's like the the guy that's playing rugby at the moment we've imported, Harry Potter.
Oh, okay.
He was born the same time as that show came out. All right, Will Robinson is the man that is in front of us. And Will, you would be, I think, very pleased to know that Tim Hoff, who is our senior mining analyst from Canaccord that was part of the panel this morning, he's just been quoted in the media as saying very nice things about you and Encounter Resources.
Oh, terrific.
I know, so fill us all in and see if we all have the same opinion at the end of the talk. Would you please make him welcome, everyone?
Thanks for that introduction, Chrissy. Very, very good of you. And thank you everyone for listening to the Encounter story this morning. Encounter is a dedicated frontier greenfields exploration company with a focus on Northern Territory and Western Australia, looking for copper and critical minerals. Now, the snapshot of Encounter, probably the really important thing here is the team and the exploration team that we've assembled. So Dr. John Ronsky and Peter Buick have attracted some tremendous young, dedicated and very highly capable geologists into our company. Sarah James and Mark Brody are here today on the booth, and please do come and see them. And they've got a team underneath them who are some of the leaders in their field. So they've been able to deliver the exploration programs, operate remotely, really cost effectively, enable us to get incredible bang for our buck when we're exploring. The other two things probably to note, we've got a sound cash position, over $7 million in the bank, and that's supported by partnerships with South32 and IGO, who are spending making large investments on projects in partnership with us. And also that the board and management are strongly committed to the company and have invested significantly over the years and control a little under 15% of the company. So this is the project portfolio. It is a very, very extensive portfolio, and I won't be going through it all today. As I said, we've got those partnerships with South32 and IGO looking for copper. And I'll touch on the South32, some of the results late last year that they achieved in that first pastoral program at the Jessica and Carrara projects. We've got a 100% owned project in the Paterson province that we've explored Lamel over many years. We've intersected high-grade copper gold, and IGO has been getting some encouraging results at our Paterson province project with them. We did some drilling late last year at the Sandover Copper project, but most of the presentation today is going to be about what's happening in the West Arunta, which is a new critical minerals province in Australia, and things are moving very rapidly out there. So you can see that there at the WA-NT border, it's a very remote part of Australia and very underexplored. So there's the overview of what we're trying to do here. Go into Central Australia, apply new technologies, new techniques, move really early onto new government data sets, and have a terrific team to be able to go in there and explore aggressively and effectively. The commodities we're chasing, I won't spend too much time on them. The primary focus has been copper, and being in the West Arunta, which has seen significant discoveries of niobium and rare earths in recent years, has meant that we're very, very much exposed to what's going on out there. So maybe I'll move on to the Aileron project in the West Arunta. That is a massive land position that we control in this district. We were the company that drilled the very first hole into this belt, and that's the Hosky anomaly, named after Terry Hosky, the geophysicist who brought those anomalies, those magnetic anomalies on that major northeast trending structure to our attention. We attracted Newcrest in as a partner. They've funded and funded the exploration. We managed it for the first 2 years, and we got a rig out there in 2020, and we drilled the first hole into that. The rig had some issues, and we stopped that hole at about 157 metres. And when we got the assays back, it had very high grade from a first hole into a 100-kilometre wide belt. It had rare earths up to 0.8. It had niobium anomalism in it. It had gold. It had copper. I gave a hell of a lot of encouragement to what we were doing. We finished that hole in May last year, and we went through into a mineralised carbonatite containing rare earths and niobium on that structure, and then we subsequently drilled at Crean, Hurley, Emily and Green and got mineralised carbonatites at all of them. And at the same time we've had WA1, see that right there at our southern border, drilling out what is probably the most significant niobium discovery in decades, and that runs right up to our tenement boundary, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. One of the things that's been really important for our, when you're going into new belts, is getting new regional data sets. Now, we've flown a very large magnetic survey across that belt. You can probably see where the resolution's quite high in the centre of that image. We also flew one of the largest Falcon gravity surveys committed to by a junior exploration company across that last year, and that's revealed some pretty incredible anomalies out in the eastern part of the project, which I'll touch on at the end. So let me just zoom into that Looney, Emily, Green, Joyce area in the southern part of the tenement package. The outline there provided by WA1 of what they've interpreting as their carbonatite, shown in that yellow dotted outline. Our Emily, Green and Joyce targets shown there as magnetic lows along those key structures. Now, we've been, it's very early days. We've been doing reconnaissance drilling at a number of these targets. We're starting to understand how to target these mineralised carbonatites. One thing, unsurprisingly, is that they're coming up some of the major structures, and these key structural intersections are really important. In late last year, we did our first drilling at Emily, and we hit high-grade near-surface niobium and rare earths at that prospect, about 1 to 2 kilometres from Looney. The targets that are coming up to be drilled this year are the Green target, which you can see there, that oval-shaped feature sitting at that intersection of those major structures of the Stromness and the interconnecting fault between the Endurance. That looks very much like it's some sort of intrusive body, and given the context of what's happening around it, we've got a high confidence that we might find some niobium and rare earths associated with that. And the drilling that we've done at our most eastern drill line there, which you can see just next to that open arrow, had some pretty significant niobium and rare earths in it. So Joyce is also another target. You can see a series of these structures, which we've been able to map out of the regional magnetics and gravity surveys that we've flown to give us high confidence that that's something pretty interesting happening there too. So we've got a heritage survey coming up in the next couple of months, and we've got to be testing that with an air core program starting in probably around May, June. Now, using air core to quickly, cost-effectively test these targets, I'll show you the next slide why we think that's going to be so successful. That's drill hole there from Emily, which is drill hole EAL 098. You can see the core, the chips from the RC drilling. The 12 metres at 2.3% niobium, with pretty significant rare earths as well. You can see an air core rig is going to get through that, and it's probably going to get us into that primary carbonatite, which this drill hole extended into. Now, that mineralisation went all the way to the end of hole, 130 metres at 0.7% niobium. So I'm not going to explain too much about the niobium market at the moment, but the price of niobium is about 5 times the price of copper. So if you want to look at how much metal is in that sort of drill hole, it's pretty significant. You can see the most western hole of Looney, also another significant intercept. We're going to see these things pinch and swell along these structures, and Encounter's got some terrific targets that are going to get tested in the next few months. So just zooming about 5 kilometres north to this original drill hole, you can see Hosky there. That's the drill hole, the magnetic anomaly that we targeted in the first drill hole into this entire belt. It was fascinating, as I said. We extended through that magnetic anomaly, into the structure and where we drilled mineralised carbonatite. We stepped over 2 kilometres where we drilled the cream target, and we got some 68 metres at 0.8% niobium. And if you look at that drill plan, you'll see again that drill hole is is completely open to the west towards that magnetic low north of Hosky. That's going to be another one of the targets for the air core rig when it turns up on site. We stepped over another 1.2 kilometres. We drilled a section of drilling through that at Crane, where we drilled a depth extensive carbonatite for 282 metres, and we finished the hole in mineralisation. I'll touch on that in a second. And then once again, we stepped over another 3 kilometres and drilled Hurley, which was based on a gravity target, and drilled a mineralised carbonatite again. I mean, this doesn't happen in regional exploration when you go out and do a reconnaissance program in a new belt. There's an incredible amount of mineralisation and carbonatites coming up in this neck of the woods, and the structures are live, and we're starting to get a bit of a handle on how we can target the best parts of these features. So I'll just show you that section through Crane. We entered it at about 65 odd metres, and we drilled it for 280 metres, and we stopped it in mineralisation. The hole averaged out at about 0.5% niobium, and there's zones there going 1% niobium. Now there's the 2 producing primary niobium mines in the world. Niobec produces about 0.4% niobium, and Catalão 2 in Brazil produces about 1% niobium. So you can see these sort of grades in a first drill hole into there are pretty significant. The carbonatite itself will zone both laterally and vertically. We've got further drilling planned there this year to really get to understand what is the orientation, what are the controls, and we're doing some early cytometallurgical work to understand how this might treat. So it's the start of a process where we want to systematically go through all these targets and understand both, I guess, the size, the grade, and also the metallurgical treatment that might be applicable to them. Hurley was that other target. I won't go into it. We drilled a series of holes. We had some trouble getting through cover. All the holes that got through cover intersected a carbonatite. The best hole was the most eastern hole there at 74 metres at 0.5%, and which is completely open to the east and north and south. So there'll be further drilling done there this year. So before I'll leave earlier on, most of that drilling's happened in what is the western part of a very large land position that we control out here. This Falcon Gravity Survey, which we committed to about this time last year and flew in May last year, has been an incredible data set to enable us to target in this belt. You can see some of those structures ripping through very clearly, both in gravity and magnetics, telling us they are very, very significant features. I've talked about Joyce and Green and Emily in the central part of that, but those anomalies that jumped out of that data set in the Falcon in the eastern part of the project at Mawson, Wordy, and particularly Percy. That is a 6 milligauss gravity anomaly going into a background, sitting at the intersection of 2 major structures. That is a really high quality IOCG and all carbonatite target. There's not a drill hole anywhere near it. We've got an EIS co-funded grant, and we'll be drilling that commencing in April. So we've got heritage clearance. We're good to go, and we've pushed the track to Mawson. We'll complete the track out to Percy, and we'll be testing that target, which is going to be fascinating. So a lot going on. We will be the air core rig will be there in May, June. The diamond rig will be there in late March, early April. We've got a heritage survey where we want to test a number of these new targets that we've identified, and the second half of the year will be about quantifying the size of these series of carbonatites and understand the grade and the tonnage distribution within them. And we'll be doing work in the background to understand the metallurgical characterisation and understanding how this sort of material will be able to treat. So while that's happening, we've got significant investment going on by our partners. Last year, over $5 million was invested by partners, South32 and IGO, on projects together with Encounter. IGO drilled some really interesting copper in an air core and diamond program they've done in the Paterson province. And South32, who are our major partner in the Northern Territory, have got a very large land position and drilled an 8-hole diamond drill program last year. I'll tell you a little bit about that. So that's our land holding in the Northern Territory. We own the extension of the Aileron belt into the that I've just been talking about into the Northern Territory. That's ground we've picked up over 12 months ago. We did some drilling at Sandover late last year, and assays are coming in in the probably late March, early April. But South 32, where Jessica's been operating last year, one of the things where we partner with these major mining companies, and they can come in, they drilled about over 7,000 metres of diamond drilling, and in that first program at Zeta, up in the north of the project there, you can see coincident magnetic gravity feature on the margin of what we're interpreting is potentially a major intrusive body. Looking for an IOCG, the first hole they drilled intersected intense pervasive red rock hematite alteration with chalcopyrite in quartz carbonate veining. I mean, for a first hole into a new belt, there's probably not a drill hole within 50 metres of this thing, 50 kilometres of this thing. We quickly turned around, they drilled a second hole 1.3 kilometres away, and that had chalcopyrite and bornite also in the veins. This is a large new mineral system we think that's occurring here. Looking at how geophysically we can explore that from this point, and we're expecting further activity at Jessica this year to be stepping up with drilling planned to follow up the geophysics. So just to wrap up, major portfolio of 100% owned projects, partners spending big dollars on our projects at the same time. We're one of the most ambitious exploration companies on the ASX. We're in a new province in the West Arunta, which is having an incredibly high drilling success rate, and we're well funded to deliver this program that's about to kick off. So thank you very much for your time.
Very impressive. Okay, we're going up to the Pilbara next. Have you heard of Hemi at all? Do you know what Hemi or where Hemi is? You'll be intimately acquainted with it in the next 15 minutes, I would suggest. So Phil Tornatora, where are you, sir? You're GM of De Grey. Now, one of the Tims mentioned De Grey as well as one of their big regrets this morning that they hadn't jumped on board. So you've got something big for us, don't you? And it's getting bigger because the last time I checked, it was coming up as one of the biggest undeveloped projects. Still there? 10 million ounces? Have you added anything to it? All right, would you make him very, very welcome, everyone? Phil Tornatora and De Grey.
Thanks for that introduction, Chrissy, and thanks to the RIU team for the opportunity for De Grey to present our story here again today. I'll be making some forward-looking statements, so you can read these disclaimers on our website. De Grey's tenement holding covers a number of native title groups' land, and we recognise the traditional custodians of the land on which we operate and pay our respects to all members of these Indigenous communities. So the Mallina Basin in the Pilbara is emerging as a new Australian gold province. It's in an Archean setting in the Pilbara Craton, which is similar to the Eastern Goldfields in the Yilgarn. But the discovery of Hemi has really changed the perception of the prospectivity of the Pilbara for large gold deposits. De Grey, we started RC drilling at Hemi in 2020, and up to the November resource update, we've defined 10.5 million ounces at Hemi alone, and we have 12.7 million across the project area. De Grey put out a DFS study in September with some impressive financial metrics, which I'll briefly discuss shortly, and we're working towards bringing this project into production. Since the last RIU, some of the highlights, June last year, we put out an updated mineral resource for Hemi, and that was the resource that was used as a basis for that definitive feasibility study. Also in June, we signed a joint venture agreement with Novo Resources, the Egina JV, to earn into an additional 1,000 square kilometres of exploration ground in the area. September last year, the Hemi mining leases were granted, which was a major milestone, and also in September, we released that definitive feasibility study. In November, we updated the Hemi resource, and in that time from the June update to November, we added 1 million ounces to the Hemi resource, so that was post the DFS. And then just last week, we announced an option to purchase the 1.4 million ounce Ashburton gold project. So De Grey's obviously been active on a number of fronts over the past 12 months. That definitive feasibility study was based on a 6 million ounce ore reserve at grading 1.5 grams per tonne. That was 100% Hemi resources, so it didn't include the 2.2 million ounce regional resources that we have as well. So the output of that DFS would place a future Hemi mine well within the top 5 Australian gold mines based on production. It has outstanding financial metrics, as you can see, and a rapid payback period of less than 2 years. And De Grey's continuing to advance development of the project, and we're targeting first gold production in the second half of 2026. But there's still a lot of upside within the company to this DFS, and that's the main focus of this presentation today. The DFS forecast annual gold production of 530,000 ounces over the first 10 years. We're looking to extend that 500,000 ounce production beyond the 10-year period, and also add to that during the first 10 years as well. And exploration will be one of the major drivers of this aim. So I'll now discuss some of the growth opportunities over and above the impressive DFS numbers for Hemi. One of the features of the plant design at Hemi is that there's some conservatism built into that, and there's potential to increase the nameplate throughput, and there's also scalability built into the comminution and pressure oxidation circuits, so we can up the production if we need to. With that million ounce increase in the resources post the DFS, we've potential to increase the size of particularly the Eagle pit. We're doing a scoping study into a regional concentrating hub based out in the west of the area. So this will be an additional plant that could either produce gold or a concentrate that we could truck to Hemi. And that would be used to process some of that 2.2 million ounce resources out in the regional area, and any other new discoveries or additions we make to that. We're doing an initial assessment of underground mining opportunity below the open pits at Hemi, and there's 1.4 million ounces there currently below 390 metres depth. And with that, along with a regional concentrating hub, the underground could potentially come in concurrently with open pit production from Hemi. Any further near surface success in the greater Hemi area will go to extending the mine life, and yeah, we've also got business development, GM BD Al Nishaw's working on. So the infill drilling, we did quite a lot of infill early last year, and that really contributed to that high confidence DFS and the 6 million ounce reserve. But since then, we've pivoted more to exploration, extending resources and testing new areas, and that's really paid off with that 1 million ounce resource increase post the DFS at Hemi. We see that there's potential to increase all the Hemi deposits at depth. A lot of them remain open along strike as well. There's immediate potential for resource extensions at Yukon, Eagle and Antwerp at Hemi, and also several of the regional deposits have resource extension potential. So just to demonstrate how the Eagle resource has grown over time, this is a long section through the Eagle deposit with a DFS design pit shown in orange there, and the outline of the original Eagle resource, the maiden resource in 2021, which was 0.4 million ounces at 0.87 grams per tonne. So in 2022, the resource was increased to just under 1 million ounces at 1.1 grams per tonne. This would have been the resource presented at last year's RIU. Then by mid last year, we'd increased it over 1 million ounces. This was the resource used as a basis for the DFS study. Then from between June and November, post the DFS, we increased it to just under 2 million ounces at a higher grade of 1.3. So it really goes to show how rapidly we can expand these resources when we get onto some good mineralised zones at Hemi. This is the current situation at Eagle. So it shows that DFS design pit With the resource update in November, we did another pit optimisation, and that blue outline there shows the outcome of that. So a good proportion of that 800,000 additional ounces at Eagle ends up in that pit optimisation. So this is over and above the DFS. We've also drilled quite a number of holes down plunge from Eagle, so we'll be putting the results out for them out shortly, but you know, we can see there's obvious potential to increase the Eagle resource further. We're starting drilling this week. We've had a little bit of a break over the Christmas, but we'll be cranking up with a number of rigs this week. One of the first areas we'll be looking at drilling is this Eagle Target Area 2, which is really a long strike extension of Eagle. But as you can see, it's Eagle's completely open down plunge, as are many of the other deposits at Hemi, and this is all potential upside for an underground operation in future. So I'm just looking at underground potential. This is a long section, a schematic long section through all the Hemi deposits laid out end to end, and it comes to over 6 kilometres of strike. We use 390 metres depth as the cut-off for the open pit. So above that, we've got around 9 million ounces, and that runs at 25,000 ounces per vertical metre. So there's fairly limited drilling below that depth. So a lot of these Archean systems have a significant vertical extent. So you can see the potential for underground in future at Hemi. And with that underground, there's potential to bring that into production, and concurrently with the open pit at Hemi. This is just another one of the targets that's come up recently at Aquila. So it shows the Aquila Crow DFS pit shell and the Aquila resource, just under 1 million ounces. Our original interpretation was that the Aquila Crow intrusive pinched out at depth, but more recent work by Richard Beckley, who's our principal technical geologist, and the team indicated that intrusive could extend at depth. And so we drilled these 3 deeper holes here to test that, and sure enough, we hit intrusive in all of them, mineralised intrusive, and this hole to the east here actually hit 300 metres of intrusive, with some very interesting alteration and mineralisation, and again, we'll be putting results out for these holes shortly. But it really opened up a new big target area here, just a long strike from Aquila, really. Another thing that we've recognised is we get some really high grades below this intrusive contact, so we're hoping that'll extend through to this target area. And we should note that all these drill holes above this all intersected sediment, so there wasn't necessarily an indication of what could lie beneath there. So we'll be starting drilling on this area pretty shortly as well, but this is just one of a number of deeper targets that we can see at Hemi, and I'm sure there'll be many more come up in future. Outside of Hemi, we put out an announcement this morning on several prospects within the Greater Hemi corridor, and this corridor contains a number of deep-seated structures, a number of intrusives, and quite a few gold anomalies. So there are some very interesting results from Gorian and Antwerp, which are close to Hemi. So you can see these on the release. Some good RC and diamond results from there, but also this West Yule area, which is a new prospect. We hit 6 metres at 3.4 and 20 at 1.2 in some early stage air core drilling there, and then a little bit further to the west at Low, which is on the edge of the JV. The first RC holes we drilled into that target, which has very similar characteristics to the Hemi intrusives. One of the holes there hit 8 metres at just under 5 grams per tonne. So we can see a lot of potential, obviously, through this Greater Hemi corridor, and there's still some large areas under cover which haven't had a drill hole into them. So we'll be extending the air core drilling that we're doing, and through this area north of Hemi into the Mount Berghaus area, and also extending air core and RC down into the edge of the JV. So as I mentioned, we're looking at a scoping study into a regional processing hub, which would be centred at Withnell, out to the west. The existing resources that we have out in that area, we can see potential for them to deliver 100,000 ounces over 6 years. And with the exploration and targets that we have out there, we're looking at increasing that resource base out to the west, which would add to the inventory to that western hub area. So we've been active on the BD front as well. So as I mentioned last week, we put out the announcement that we signed an option agreement to purchase the Ashburton project from Kalamazoo Resources. That's 1.4 million ounce deposit there at 2.8 grams per tonne gold. That's refractory in the fresh, so the idea would be to produce a concentrate at Ashburton and truck that up to the pressure oxidation plant at Hemi. So that Hemi plant, when it's constructed, will be a regionally strategic asset. We'll be able to treat ore and concentrates from throughout the region. And as for the Western Hub and the underground, this is all potentially going to increase the production output from the Hemi plant and also add to that mine life. We see exploration as still a key value driver for the company. We're just getting back into drilling this week after having a bit of a break. And in some of the immediate targets, we're continuing that Hemi resource extension with drilling planned for Eagle, Ducon, Aquila and Falcon, continuing that shallow RC drilling from Gorian and Antwerp and also around to Scooby. Aircore drilling, we've got a big aircore program planned through that Crater Hemi corridor and other targets in the area, and extending down into the edge of the JV with Aircore and RC. And we'll also need to do some geotechnical and metallurgical type drilling out in the western area to support the studies into that Western Hub. So De Grey's focused on bringing this project into production, and we see that as the greatest value drivers for shareholders. And on top of that, we're aiming to increase the open pittable and underground resources through exploration and business development. And there's potential to add to the annual output within the first 5 years of the Hemi open pit coming on stream, in addition to extending the mine life. We've got a rapidly expanding project team under our project director, Peter Holmes, and we'll continue to develop the organisational capability so we can deliver this project. Thank you.
Bill, I just wanted to apologise again for butchering another name today, but I put the N and the R around the other way, and I was trying to say this Phil Tornatora. See? Correct. Thank you, sir.
you.
Go and have a chat with him out at De Grey. Team, I'm going to give you a half-an-hour break. Go and enjoy yourselves. Make the most of it. Good luck getting some food, and if you get some, bring some back to me. That would be lovely, I'd say, at this stage. But there's plenty of food. It's just going to take us a little while to roll through, but enjoy your break. Thank you.